Pete Sessions, Republican from Texas. Congressman, good morning to you, sir. I know that you are a man of faith. You're a father of 5. You're a proud Eagle Scout. I'm curious if you support this being mandated and what you like about it.
Well, as a matter of fact, I do support it. Marky, years ago, we had changes in probably not just Texas, but they were in Texas, that stopped prayers before athletic events. And I believe that it had a profound impact on when it was utilized to really admonish both the teams, both the sides, to be very careful and to use their athletic skills to the proper way. And I think since then, you've seen a lot of things that have happened. Okay, now about this as education. I think the Bible is full of history. I think it has lots that can be taught and learned. It is a across-the-board viewpoint that people come as a result of God. God is the basis of everything we do. And if you don't believe that, look up into the heavens and the skies. Look at the perfection of human beings, and then look at the rest of the universe. We have been blessed by God.
And what about, of course, the separation of church and state? Republicans, too, have built your entire education brand on parents deciding what kids learn. Not the government. When Democrats wanted to expand how race and history were taught in schools, Republicans called it government indoctrination. How is this any different?
Well, we can sit here and argue those measures, but the bottom line is that we are not, I believe, if you look constitutionally, we're not trying to pick which religion. And I think the Bible is a high enough venture into life and admission that we come from God and God is the sole source. All we're trying to do is make sure that as we change and bring back the education to our children that we believe is lacking, it should include more about not just Western culture, but who we are as a people, what we stand for. And I am proud, not just as a Texan, but as an American, to tell our story and to make sure, in particular, where we have so many students that have no background and no understanding that America is a great nation and we're proud of who we are.
One more question before I get to some other news of day. Just curious, a Muslim family, a Jewish family, an atheist family who this makes them uncomfortable in your district and they don't want their child reading Bible passages. What's their recourse if this becomes required reading?
Well, I think almost like anything else, there are things that are taught in the schools that the parents need to make sure that they're an able part of. And I think that we went through this in the 50s with the things that were taught. It's still up to the family. We believe the family is the basis of this. So where you have what might be a family that preaches or teaches something different, we want those parents to do it. But as an educational, historical background, you can read the Bible, and it is full of history that I think is valuable. That's why I go to church every week to give thanks to God. And I think that the reading of the Bible and acknowledgement of it is a positive step, and I'm proud of the Texas State Board of Education.
We will definitely be following this, see if it passes today as it is expected to. Sir, let me just switch gears with you while I still have you to the Iran war and ongoing negotiations. Congressman, I know you said the MOU raises some serious questions, but you didn't spell those out publicly. You also called on Vice President Vance to give a full accounting of the negotiations. What specifically is worrying you the most this morning?
Well, I think the things that I was in reference to and that we should be in reference to is what is the deal? What is the agreement? And will this agreement make the Iranians more valuable from an economic perspective to begin keeping that and become economic powers? Or will it be a military power that threatens its neighbors, that does things that you see being done right now, where they are more worried about their military and harming their neighbors? Next, I think it's important that we go to the basic, and that is the trust. Do we see things? If we're at the table, have we pounded out the real effort of what this answer would be. And I think the truth of it is that we have to answer the same way they do. And if there is a difference in that, then there is no reason to have an agreement, because it would not be binding in the long run.
Not a lot of trust on either side right now, it sounds like. Congressman Pete Sessions, thanks for covering the gamut with me, sir. I got to end it there, but thank you for your time, as always. Appreciate having you.
Yes, ma'am.
And by the way, just back to the Texas conversation.